Hello, everybody. We are brought to you today by Routine. When you sleep, you lose between a pound and a pound and a half of water, mainly from expelling vapors and sweating. What do you do first thing in the morning? Well, most people wake up, don't drink water, and they go straight for the caffeine. They drink coffee, and by doing so, you actually dehydrate yourself even more. So, Morning Routine is a product that contains half an organic lemon, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and most importantly, no sugar. They come in these little single serve packets, and they are part of every single morning for me. When I wake up, the first thing I do is grab my shaker bottle, pour one of these little single serve packets in, shake it up, and drink it. Genuinely, the days I use Morning Routine versus the days I don't, the days I do, I truthfully feel hydrated. I feel like my brain is just working in a way that it doesn't on days that I don't start my day off with one of these. Routine, trusted ingredients, made convenient. If you go to yourroutine.com and use code ShaneWhite30 at checkout, you'll get 30% off your first order. Again, this is just a daily morning supplement that I take. And a little hack for everyone listening too, I take these first thing in the morning. Sometimes when I feel just dehydrated, or maybe if you decide to have an alcoholic beverage, they're also great, in my opinion, after if you have a drink, having one of these afterwards before you go to bed to rehydrate. Just any part of your day, you can plug one of these in just to rehydrate yourself and get going. And like I said, go to yourroutine.com and use code ShaneWhite30 at checkout for 30% off your first order. Today, we're also brought to you by NeuroRoast. Today's episode is brought to you by NeuroRoast, a company that's dedicated to helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. NeuroRoast's flagship product is their premium mushroom coffee, which is made with an organic single origin coffee and their signature blend of 5 different functional mushrooms, including cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, and chaga. Mushroom coffee is a new and exciting way to supercharge your day. Unlike regular coffee, which can cause jitters and crashes, mushroom coffee provides a more balanced and sustained energy boost, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. And with NeuroRoast ground and instant coffee options, you can enjoy the benefits of mushroom coffee wherever and whenever you need it. And here's some great news for my listeners today. NeuroRoast is offering an exclusive discount just for you. If you use the code Shane White during checkout at neuroroast.com, that's NEUROAST.com, you'll get 30% off your order. Whether you choose ground or instant coffee, both will work. So again, that's Shane White at checkout for 30% off your purchase. So if you're looking for a natural and delicious way to boost your focus, memory, and overall cognitive function, give NeuroRoast mushroom coffee a try. With their commitment to quality and sustainability, you can trust that you're getting the best possible coffee for your brain and your body. And one last time, use that code Shane White at checkout to get 30%. That is the prompt they gave me. Love the guys at NeuroRoast. Genuinely, folks, from me to you, their coffee is delicious. It does honestly have a different sort of caffeination way of it. The best way to describe it is it doesn't give you the jitters or the crash. I love their stuff. I get the flavored mushroom coffee, ground coffee. To be honest, it's one of my favorite afternoon coffee products. If I'm going to have a cup of coffee for some reason in the afternoon, whether it's a long, busy day, whatever it may be, I love taking their stuff because it really doesn't give you this like jittery, super elevated, caffeinated feeling, but you feel like you have energy and you don't have the crash later. So genuinely do love NeuroRoast. Again, their website is NEUROAST.com and the code is Shane White. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening today. The episode is up after this. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shane White Show. I am pumped today to get Suzie York on the podcast. Suzie, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I didn't even tell you this before we started recording, but you've been on my short list of founders that I've been wanting to get on here since I started this. So I'm pumped to finally make it happen. First and foremost, thanks for taking the time. I know you're obviously doing a lot and you're building businesses, so thanks for hopping on here. For everyone who doesn't know who you are, which is going to be surprising because a lot of my consumers and listeners of this podcast are dialed into this industry, can you just give everyone a quick overview of your background and the businesses you've started? I think it'll ring some bells pretty quickly.
Yeah, perfect. Suzie York. I'm a now 30-year marketing veteran. So my first 20 years was in consumer packaged goods as a climbing a ladder, VP of marketing, CMO, and I worked at 5 multinationals. And I then spent a lot of time consulting in the natural space, and I worked for 5 or 6 CEOs for smaller brands, 2 to 100 million, say Canada, US. And then I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I think I can do this. And it was around 2015, 16. So I was the right hand, strat planning, all the P&Ls, 3-year plans, and obviously all the sales and marketing plans, in wearing my hats there. But I had, like, for 35 years, the excuses, I told my mom 35 years ago, one day I'll start my own brand. And I was like big corporate Susie. But I had the 3 excuses that many of us have, oh, I don't have the time. My kids are too young. Oh, I don't have money saved. I was single mom 10 years in my 40s. So it's pretty hard to save money and,
For
keep your
sure.
house. And I didn't have an idea. So I had my safe 3 excuses. But then what happened is I read The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. I just
Mm,
stumbled onto the book. I was kind of starting to follow the trends and realize, oh my goodness, there's something going on with fats. I had been on a low fat diet for 20 years. I, struggled with 10 pounds, 20 pounds in my 20s. So I started running, and then, running turned into cycling, and cycling turned into, oh my goodness, triathlons, which were huge in Ontario.
oh wow, yeah.
And I followed this horrific low fat diet. So by the time I got to my 40s, low fat diet for 20 years, Ironman, once a year, had 11, big,
Just a
big
casual
executive
Iron
job. Yeah.
Man once a year.
Oh man, my body was wrecked. And, I was leaner, like I am now. And I was like, man, I'm on high blood pressure meds and prescription IBS meds. And I'm mid 40s. And I'm like, my goodness gracious, right? I'm not eating any fat. I'm being very careful. I cheat with sugars on Saturday night. I do my 5-hour bike rides. Hey, I can do that.
Sure.
But no, it was a mess. Like, my whole body was saying, like, this doesn't work. So when I read Nina's book, I'm like, oh my goodness, of course, you only have 3 new macros, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
starving the fats. I'm eating way too many carbs, and I'm just average protein. So I was pissed. I was really, I was fueled with, like, I'm annoyed. Like, we've all been misled for 40 years, as,
Yeah.
Nina
Well, it's
has in
funny
her
you're
book.
starting with this because this is something, honestly, I talk to my family and friends about
Mm-hmm.
religiously right now because I can't believe how many people are still in that camp of belief.
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole, and I don't like all, the government bodies are a big issue, right? The
Yeah.
pyramid is over 50% carbs. So, there's, like, big kind of battles happening right now to try to change the policies in Canada and the US and around the world, because the policies that encourage eating all those carbs, including the sugars and the grains, um, have led to the obesity issues that we have today. And, Nina talks about that in her book, but the policies drive school programs, military programs, etc., and funding for more research. And it's all interconnected. Like the ketogenic diet and a low carb diet is linked to improvements in metabolic health,
Mm-hmm.
which, we all need, because we're all dying earlier, and we all suffering from metabolic diseases, including myself with cardiovascular now, right? So,
Oh wow.
which we chatted a little bit, well,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my goodness, like, what else can I do? I'm checking off all the lists to avoid cardiovascular, and I still have it. So, so for me, I was really pissed. And back then there was only Nina's book, but Dr. Hyman was writing a book, Dr. Mercola, like, all the big doctors were writing books. And I was like, well, I'm not going to write a book. What can I do as a brand builder? So it was obvious to me I needed to build a brand. I knew that Chobani, launched their brand and really helped accelerate protein in the US. Gluten-free, even though it was a few brands, was a step change. you had Atkins was a brand, you had patterns of brands driving change in perception and awareness. So I kind of said, well, somebody like me is going to say, well, now we need a fats brand.
Yeah, right.
Somebody's going to do it. Like somebody's
So a
going
little
to,
bit of
remember
timing.
Atkins. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to launch a fats brand and do my part to say, fats can be good. So I was on the plane on my way to Expo. So now I'm at
Oh, of
Expo
course.
West. I'm
Yeah.
Googling the USPTO database. Like, oh, there must be
Oh,
some
wow. We
brands.
really?
Yeah. Yeah, already. Yeah, the hotel, and then I'm walking the show and I'm like, oh, somebody else must have thought about this, because by then there was more and more articles. Nina's book came out, and I was tracking everything. I had Google alerts, and like Time magazine had eggs on the front, and then meat in the front, and then cheeses
What?
on the front.
And
Like,
sorry, Suzie, what year was this? What Expo year was this?
2000. So Expo 16, March
Okay.
2016,
Okay.
and there was a lot of meat at the Expo. There was a lot of butters. And there was starting to be the higher fat content and stuff. So you could see, if you're reading in the trends, of course, plant-based was there, but you could see that it's percolating versus, the previous, the previous 20 years, which were anti-fat. So I kind of knew between what I was seeing online and magazines and articles, front page New York Times, obviously, and then the show, I was like, somebody's going to put two and two together. This was before the word keto even was the word keto did not, we really started hearing it in May 2018. And in Canada, so I kind of said, okay, like I want to launch a brand. I launched in August of 2017. In May of 2018, so I'll back up on that in a sec. But in May of 2018, we were the first brand in North America to have a brand with PDQs with the word ketogenic on the front of the PDQ.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
The buyer in Canada was kind of bought in, and she said, I want to be first in the world with keto on an end cap. And she actually listed us before the planogram. So she was that in a hurry to get to market. But keto it was the first time you saw keto anywhere. Like, if you go back even on LinkedIn, like in early 2018, there's no brands that other than, but Good Fats, we didn't even I launched as Suzie's Good Fats in August 2017. By September 2018, we're selling 1 million a month. We finished our first year at 8 million, our second year at 47 million. Like, it was nuts. Yeah, it was.
I didn't realize it grew that fast.
Yeah, it was really, really nuts. It was Canadian dollars, so
sure.
not quite as big.
I helped RX in Canada, so I know the whole conversion thing.
But it really, really took off. And the first 12 months, we didn't even have the word keto on the brand. Like, now there's the little, keto certification. So this is the, fifth iteration. So I launched Suzie's Good Fats. This is my t-shirt.
Oh, very cool. You got the original.
Ugly, I hated this font here, but I couldn't get better. I had work. You're going, and it's like, okay, well, we'll print another version. So this is whatever sixth iteration, and this is the Chewy Nutty line that we launched. That's different than the Truffle Bar. The Truffle Bar is the original fats bar. Same, very similar macros and ingredients, but the texture is different. So, I kind of had a 5-year ride as founder CEO of Love Good Fats. And it was just, the Wild West days.
Yeah.
So, I was raising 1 million, and I got 3 million thrown at me. And then I was raising 3, and we got 10. And then, I was talking to all these VCs, and all the VCs were like, no, you need to raise 20 and you need to raise 50. And I was like, oh my goodness, wait, like,
at this point, though, Suzie, I mean, you had gone from corporate life to jumping into this. So going from the concept of going to Expo West to launching a product, how long was that?
Yeah, well, I had an in-between phase. So my last big corporate job was at Weight Watchers, I think 2014. So I had like a slow immersion. You go from, like boiling, like you kind of go from cold water to medium water to hot water. So I stepped my way into it. So I had been, I think this year will be the 10th year at both expos. So or maybe 12th year actually. So I was familiar. I was a fractional CMO for 5 brands over like a 2-year period or 3-year period. So for me, and when I was in corporate, I was an intrapreneur before the term was even coined.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, when I first heard this term towards the end, I was like, of course, that was me. So I was this intrapreneur bucking the system in corporate, learning the basics. I'm pretty, I'm an engineer. I'm McGill electrical engineer who was the first ever hired at Procter and Gamble in Toronto without a business degree.
Wow.
So I kind of, when I'm on the spectrum a little bit, I've since learned, and I learned I was lesbian, and then I was on the spectrum, which supposedly is connected and common for some women my generation. So I kind of had, it's a different, entirely different world than today. I graduated 1990 and got the big corporate job and the suitcase and the nylons and the skirt suit, and
for
we
sure.
learned the P&G way to build brands. But everything I learned in my 6 years there applies today, because there's some very strong basics on positioning and the branding and the research approach and the awareness and trial and then winning at the store and all those basics. So it was a different time. But for me, the path worked really well to go from corporate to fractional CMO for smaller brands than, multi-billion dollar. And then I was like, okay, well, now I've worked for 5 or 6 CEOs and they're hiring me as their right hand, and I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm making them all this money. Like, I want to do, I can do
Why
this.
can I do this?
Yeah. So for me, it worked
did you
out
do
really
it
well.
as you were a fractional CMO? Were you also tweaking and testing Love Good Fats? Yeah.
Yeah, I had like a 12-month overlap. So my contracts, went from full-time to part-time. And then I had to manage my budget, make my personal budget, right? I was still a single mom and kids were pretty young. And yeah, for sure, and I was very much looking for a partner because I was pretty insecure with the ability of just doing it myself. And I literally, I think, I had a mission to find a partner and a project. So I quote, spent time with 5 or 6, but no one wanted to like the folks I was finding. I wanted to be complementary, and we would both, be full-time founders. And I couldn't find anyone that was A, complementary, and then B, that wanted to take the jump out of the, the safe salary and move over.
It's hard, right?
Yeah. So then I wind up doing the first raise by myself and doing all the incorporation documents. And then guess what? Then it's too late, right? Like, then you can hire. Yeah. So I hired like a COO, and I had advisors. And
can I ask one question there too, Suzie? Yep. Sorry, just I'm super curious. Yeah. So you're doing the big corporate thing. Before we start recording, you even hit on, most people, their lack of jumping is kind of like the 3 safety nets.
Yeah.
Time, responsibilities with kids or family, and then money put away. For you in that moment, did you have the ability or think about trying to bootstrap this, or was it always like, I'm going to go raise capital, be able to give myself a nice little salary or whatever? I don't know what your situation was, but no salary originally.
So it's kind of in the middle, and the times were quite different. So we'll talk about that a bit, but I put in a couple $100,000 of my savings. So I took my daughter's university little fund. And then I was aiming to raise 500. I raised 397. It was enough for the first production run. The first production run was a full fail. So we blew $80,000 that we lost. God. Like, we had to write off the packaging and stuff. Now the co-man was awesome. They didn't charge us. So they ate, their part, the ingredients and their time. But we still lost 80 of the 400 we had. So it was like nerve wracking.
I mean, that's what I don't think a lot of people know that haven't been in CPG or packaged food is there's some of that up front where you're like, can I jump in for 10 grand? And you don't realize like, like you could do a production run. It costs you $100,000. Not work.
And, I'm getting goosebumps. Like it's insane. I was 50. And again, single mom, juggling a few things, kind of pivot in career. You're kind of like, okay, I stepped out of big corporate and I was doing consulting. So I kind of had stepping stones. It wasn't like a shock of, someone who just leaves today a big corporate job. I kind of worked my way, but it was still very, very hairy. And I was going into launching my own brand. and I raised 400. I had, because I was doing a little raise, I didn't know anything. So I was like, okay, I have to find corporate counsel, I assume. So I, LinkedIn, hey, help. I interviewed 3, found them, and everything was LinkedIn, the kitchen labs. Like I knew like
Oh,
nothing,
really? All LinkedIn.
QuickBooks, all LinkedIn. Like, well, a little bit my network, but if it wasn't like, if I didn't have, so I, like, I'm probably a classic of the executives back then. You're super busy, you have an hour commute on both ends, you have, the lunches you have to make, and I had carpool drop off. So you don't have time for networking. And I always felt guilty, like, barely keeping in touch with anyone. I had 400 people on LinkedIn. Now I have like 20,000. And I
Yeah.
never like made it a priority. I always felt guilty. I'm not making it a priority to stay in touch with, my ex coworkers, my mentor. Like I never even sought out mentors. Like I always kind of felt I'm doing such a bad job at what I know inherently I should make time for. But I had all the excuses, right? I'm training
Sure.
for this Ironman and this
Yeah,
year
you hit on that at
again
the
and
beginning.
blah, blah,
An
blah.
Iron Man
Yeah.
alone is a
Yeah.
full-time job.
But now, the younger generation now is in a different spot because there's no excuse to not network. Like back then,
Mhm.
like we didn't even have LinkedIn and whatnot. So when I started, when I started, got the idea. So I'm at Expo West. I'm Googling USPTO names. I'm walking the show. So I'm there for 3 days. I have the plane time. And obviously I'm writing the concepts. And you'll see in my book, I have the very first concept of Susie's Good Fats. And I
Oh,
had all the
wow.
name. I have Fats Love and Love Fats. And I have all these crazy names. I'm like, how did I even think that that would make sense? But I was already writing what I teach and what I've spent my career teaching, the 4 Ps and the positioning. So you use a concept, you use, a headline, like the pitch, right? The Dragon's Den pitch, the Shark's Den pitch, the 7-second pitch, the 1-minute pitch, whatever you want to call it. It's in big CPG, it's called a concept. So I was writing down the insight, the problem we're solving, the benefit of the brand, the reasons to believe the benefit to be true, and the pricing strategy. So I came back from the show with concepts. And like I started drawing them out by hand, and then I'm like,
Oh,
I spent the
wow.
first $8,000 on getting help with a favor with a packaging agency. So then I have under one hand my mini pitch deck, and oh my god, it's horrific. Like I still have it, and
But it was
I'm
the start,
embarrassed.
you know?
Yeah, but I would show this little, crappy little PowerPoint, and everyone I met about 200 people in 12 months. There's one person who said, don't do this. Like, you're
Mm,
crazy. This is way too risky.
wow.
199 that I met said, wow, Susie, I'll support you in one way or in the other. And it's a big idea. And then I would even say, I'm taking Nikki's money, right? Like, if this doesn't work, it's my house, right? And they're like, no, this is a big idea, right? Like I made it personal, and then I still got a lot of support. So I had like a group initially. The first year I didn't get paid.
Okay.
Well, the first year and a half, and then I got paid, like 2,000 a month, and then eventually 4, and then like
And do you think
miniature.
that, because I don't think we talk about that a lot for founders in that space, in that time zone. I mean, it had to be incredibly hard to just put
Yeah,
all your time and energy in something you're making zero money from today.
yeah, and it's like I mean, there's I think you hear about some of the success stories, particularly in tech, where these 20-year-olds are becoming multi-gazillionaire and stuff. But
Yeah.
when I launched, it was a time where in food there was 1 out of 2, 3, 4,000 brands that had a chance to make it, right? Like RX
Right.
would have been one of them, Vega a little bit before. It just, for you to start a food brand was a little bit crazy because the fail rate was nearly 100%,
Right.
other than a
Yeah.
few exceptions. So nobody did that. No VCs, like it was a zero. I don't know any VC who would have invested in food like prior to 2015. Like it would have been the exception, and you would have had to already be at 10 million in sales or something. But the bubble was just starting to turn because between Vega, RX, There's another bar brand that exited.
There were a
Like
few right
suddenly,
around then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh, wait a minute. And tech bubble was blowing up again. So then I was like, oh, wait, maybe we can fund food and snack startups.
Yeah.
So so like for me, I got really lucky with, I launched a fats brand because I wanted to get the word out. And then keto, within a year of me launching, just took off. So then
Yeah,
I
incredible
started,
timing.
like the
Yeah.
timing, like it was just, and the product was like no other bar out there. Like the truffle bar is just, you bite into it and it just like, it's a truffle, like it's a soft truffle. And so I would video. Back then I went to I was everywhere. I pitched every single buyer myself, every single store I went myself, every single consumer show I was there. I've touched, 400,000 people personally, like, and I would take
Wow.
videos. Like I would take videos of the store manager taking a bite and he would be like, "Are you sure you want to videotape? What if I don't like it?" Right? Cuz bars, like
Yeah.
most bars are pretty
There's a
gross.
lot that are not good.
Yeah, unless they're full of sugar. But so I was like, no, like 1 gram of sugar, tastes delicious, melt in your mouth. And then you bite into the bar. It's full of good fats, coconut oil, and the bar actually melts. Like with your taste buds, suddenly you have like a rush of good fats. Your serotonin, your brain gets a signal of flavor, and it's all soft. People are like, what the heck is going on? Right? Like the protein bars are like knock, 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 hard bars. And then I'm showing up with this. So it was insane. Like, so you had the checklist, the 3 Ps. I had the right name. I had 22% of consumers. I did like 5 rounds of consumer research. In my last round, I had 22% of consumers said, don't call the name with the word fats. They had fats as a dislike. They're like, no. I will not buy a brand. Actually, we had consumers in verbatim saying, I will not put a brand in my cart with the word fats on it in verbatim.
Just because misconception of what
well,
fats make you fat type of thing.
Like 7 years ago, like there's still a lot of issues with the word fats, but keto basically made good fats a good thing. But it wasn't when I launched. So I was very bold. Like there was no food brands in the world that had fats in their brand name.
Right.
The product was just a melting truffle. The price was pretty reasonable. Like it was a premium bar. Oh, I guess you had Bulletproof actually back then. Yeah, I take that back.
I was saying.
Bulletproof had a lot of fats, but it wasn't keto. Like
wasn't
the net
keto
carbs. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I remember when they came on the market. It was one we paid attention to at our X Bar because we were really curious how that was going to land with consumers. Yeah, I remember that.
So we kind of, there was that brand, and it was at Whole Foods, and but we had a lot of advantages versus that brand in the name and the product, and how it melted. That bar is very different now. They've launched a bunch of innovations since. So I and then I hit the category trend, and I priced it right. We were discount to Bulletproof, but premium to like an RX, etc. So,
super smart.
And then I did the founder, like the big difference with founders is, you're not getting paid, but B, you're there. You're in every single store, every single buyer meeting, every single trade event, consumer event. And that was a really big gift because like in big CPG in my 20 years, I was behind a focus group window. And that's the most, I did one in home in 20 years. Other than that, you talk to your friends and family. But as a marketer, you're not engaged with your audience. As a founder, boom, I was everywhere. And it didn't take long. Like I did the first production in August. And then by October, I was changing the formula for the January production. And I was launching 2 more flavors. And I was working on the August plant-based ones, right? I was like, boom, 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 boom. So in like 24 months, we launched like 12 SKUs. And we made all the packaging tweaks 4 times, like fast adapt in 24 months.
Wow.
And
Suzie,
that doesn't happen in big CPG,
it doesn't
right?
At all.
Like it takes forever. And, we met Whole Foods, like the numbers at Whole Foods Canada were off the chart. So they were like, we had averages over $2,000 per store.
Oh, wow. Did you really?
Per week. Yeah. Like it was insane.
Were you mainly focused on Canada then, or did you go Canada, US at the same time?
Well, I just launched in Canada, but then within like 6 months, we had these insane numbers. So Walmart US was looking at the Canadian POS, right, in their
Sure.
portal. Whole
Yeah.
Foods US was looking at the Canadian numbers in their portal. So everyone was calling me saying, what the heck? Like, these can't be correct, right? Like, mathematically, there's no brands that had these numbers like that in the US. So they're like, can you come meet us? So then what happens is in June of, the brand is 9 months old. I'm flying down and meeting US retailers. And then
Wow.
everyone's inviting me, and I'm in, the Kroger innovation to
Yeah.
Walmart innovation. And so we got listed really quickly at Whole Foods US nationally, like launched right in 2000 and beginning of 2019, like we're on the shelves nationally. So we were one of the first 3 brands, I think, that was a national launch, and because they had just centralized everything. So we got really, grateful of having tremendous support from that banner, and then it just snowballed from there.
Wow.
They saw the trends and they wanted to support the brand, so it went
Yeah.
pretty quick. Now we did kind of, the Cinderella story hit a bit of a wall. Like we were, 47 million year 2. We were like in tens of thousands of stores in the US, but then COVID hit. And COVID hit the portable nutritional category,
Sure.
like 40% down overnight. Like
Right.
I think RX kind of saw
Oh,
that
yeah.
too, and Cliff and everybody. But the smaller brands got hit more. And we also had like 10 competitors kind of jump in. So now everyone was listing keto brands and stuff. So we kind of, we didn't grow. We lost some kind of bigger distribution. We were very fortunate to have Costco, which, multiplied everybody. When we got into Costco, every retailer grew. Like it was like a phenomenal multiplying effect. So then,
Costco's a phenomenon.
it was incredible.
Yeah.
Because like everyone wins, right? You had awareness and
Yes.
trial and trial and trial. So everybody was winning. Like Unify was 2 to 3 times higher. The other big distributor in Canada was 2 to 3 times higher. Like everyone was winning because they help build a brand. And this is what you learn in big CPG, right? Awareness and trial. Like you would spend millions of dollars on the Super Bowl ad or your media plan,
Right.
to get that impact of multiplier awareness and trial. So we got really lucky with that. But then, some banners like Costco were pretty aggressive with COVID to just, pull away from certain categories. So,
Tighten up.
so we kind of went into some tougher times and stuff, but still, COVID came to an end. And as we all know, bars have been back, and they're back. And, we have a very strong brand. I think we in Canada, not as big. We didn't hit the 100 million in the US as we were on track to, but we did something that, there's hardly any brands. I think there's maybe 3 in all of Canada that have built a brand as big and as fast.
Yeah. It's hard to do. You're one of a few.
Yeah.
And Suzie,
when you're there, it's nice, right? And that's a whole other topic, but if you can't get to that critical mass, over 10 and 20 and 30 million in Canada and over 100 million in the US, if you don't get past those milestones, it's really hard, because you need kind of that critical mass to be able to get some funding and reinvest and manage your P&L and manage your overheads and manage your cost of goods. So it's that tough world that if you're smaller, you kind of have trouble staying alive. But if you can get to that critical mass, then you have an advantage. You're still small compared to some big brands, but at least you're over that milestone. And we got over that milestone. So that was a big gift.
That's amazing. No, Suzie, thank you for diving through that. And I want to make sure we save a little bit of time for your new company. So can you give us like the 30-second, you're still a part of Love Good Fats, right? But did you actually have an exit, or how did it, for everyone listening, where's it at?
Yeah. So with the volume going down and with the whole Wild West crashing, there hasn't been a lot of exits. And
no,
certainly
there has not.
I don't think there's been any in portable on the go foods since the crash with COVID. But it's a $30 million brand that is in all the major retailers and exceeding the minimums and doing really well. So now it's about innovation. Love Good Fats has just launched, I think, the biggest innovation ever for the brand, which is Love Good Protein, 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar. So that's, I'm telling the CEO there, who's my former boss, brace yourself, because that is very similar to, what Grenade experienced or
I
what
was
Love
going to
Good
say
Fats
that's
experienced.
genius
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's an incredible product, triple threat, like it's chewy and it's creamy and it's crispy and it's
Wow. Oh, I
insane.
got to try
So
that. I
yeah,
haven't
yeah,
tried that yet. That's
I'll show
awesome.
you a picture right before we go. But
Okay.
then, I stepped out of the CEO role. We were gonna like hire a US CEO and, take it to exit. And then so I was stepping out of the day to day, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. I'm still like on the board and founder and have lots to do there, but not like a paid full-time job.
Sure.
And then I had a CMO job. I got that from a former job, and I was doing that. But then I had while I was at Love Good Fats, I'd seen some co-mans and chocolates, and one of them said, "Hey, I have some formulas." And I've been dabbling around with putting vitamins in the chocolates. And,
Oh,
there's a
cool.
few brands. Yeah, there's brands out there, small brands out there. There's 2 or 3 that have done that. So I was like, okay, well, but no one's done that in a big way. So like, I knew like, hey, functional foods, like they're here to stay. Adaptogens, that's only going to get bigger and bigger. So it's like functional foods, adaptogens, infusing pure chocolate with protein, fiber, adaptogens, vitamins, supplements, herbs. Someone's going to do that. So I was like, okay, why don't I give it a shot? So the same thing, at first I was like, okay, well, I have this full-time job. I have this board job. I started Founders Helping Founders. I'm like, okay, I have 3 jobs now. This is 4. Like, this is crazy.
Right.
But I did, all the basics, same as concept, optimize the concept. So I was like, okay, well, let's kind of see if there's an idea there. So you work at night and weekends and kind of have your pet project to see if there's enough there. And then I finally took the plunge a year ago, last July, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this full time. I still have the
Congratulations.
founders and I still have Love Good Fats, but I did it full time. And then we launched Better Chocolate in across Canada. So this is functional chocolate with benefits. They're loaded with prebiotics. We have 5 flavors. Each one of them,
Awesome.
there's some protein ones, protein and fiber with the feel full longer claim because it's full of protein and fiber, but it's all pure bean to bar chocolate from Ecuador. So it's NGO little families.
Oh, wow.
There's no preservatives, there's no alkali. Most chocolates is processed with alkali.
Yeah.
So it's a pure chocolate. What I didn't realize is you maintain more antioxidants if you're not putting the cacao through the alkali process. That strips away the theobromine, the flavonoids, the antioxidants. The chocolate in the end is much healthier. So we're doing HPLC testing to be able to make that claim. Yeah, you have more good, like it's like everything, right? If the food is less processed, you have more good stuff in it.
Sure.
It just no one's kind of really put all of that together in chocolate.
Isn't that funny? Like in general, I feel like I feel like I have this conversation once a day now where it's like, wait, all these things that just like we mess with less are way better for us. Shock. Like it makes so much more sense.
So it's kind of like, wow, you have a better tasting chocolate. You have pure cacao butter, no preservatives, no processing, nothing artificial. We had a little bit of stevia and erythritol. And erythritol got beaten up a little bit.
I saw that, but I think it's still
it's a natural sweetener, and it's not like the artificial sweeteners. So you have a 0 gram of sugar added, pure cacao. You taste the difference. So and I launched a vitamin in the U.S. So
cool.
You can make health claims on the vitamins. Now I can say healthy chocolate. So I have 5 vitamins. We're in 2 banners in the US, and then we have the Better Chocolates, which we're rolling out across Canada. We're in about 200 stores, and we're listed in another 200 to 300, which I'll keep updating my LinkedIn with the successes.
I'll add that to the show notes.
But it's back to scrappy, right? Like no salary for a year, and Melanie and I are doing demos. 2 of our 4 kids have we're paid minimum wage to drive around and go store to store, and
Wow.
just follow my
Okay.
LinkedIn and you'll see
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
doing what.
What's it been like?
And
Has that been kind of wild to go back to that?
yeah, I mean, when you're, and you probably, if you talk to second round founders, you're on a board, you're dealing with, I raised $30 million with Love Good Fats. We have an amazing board of 7, and I'm now 56. And if you go back to founder stuff, like you're designing packaging and proofing everything and doing website. We don't have money. Like, we didn't have,
Yeah.
it's not hiring. We didn't hire any agency. It's all internal. We got a packaging agency because I wasn't happy enough with, I thought we could do better, and we did but it's all, so you're doing everything, you're filling out forms, and, so
Scrappy. Yeah.
it's pretty scrappy. And so you kind of have to balance it a bit. I'm pleased that I have, my other board role. I'm helping some founders to kind of keep the CMO part of
Sure.
my,
Yeah.
my life, to keep those juices kind of fresh. But if you're not ready to be scrappy again, and that's why I had a lot of advice from very successful founders that exited,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, no, I'm not going back unless it's going to be, like Somos, where you're not really scrappy. You're kind of a
It's
big,
probably hard. I mean, I
yeah.
can only imagine, like, once you've had success at that level, it's
Mhm.
probably, I mean, you gotta be a special kind of person to want to go back and
Yeah.
struggle again like that.
Yeah.
Right. And
Like,
just like
why,
go through that stuff.
yeah. And
Hmm.
then begging for, a raise, we're going to open
Yeah.
up another little round.
Do
And
you see
okay,
this being another like game changing product line brand like you did
yeah.
with Love Good Fats? Is
Yeah,
that
I
why you
think
did it?
so. Yeah, I don't, well, and for sure, like the business, the opportunity is huge. Like, we're not going to have 47 million year 2. I think those days of those type of growth, and you saw it with RX,
Hmm.
is pretty rare. And, we're in a format that's $9 or $10 with these, and we're in vitamins in the US. So, the growth won't be, as astronomical. But there's no one playing in these spaces, and consumers are looking for functional foods. They're just allowed now in Canada, finally.
Okay.
And we're first to market with a better tasting product. We got the value equation right, so it's affordable. Like, we're not a bean to, like, the issue with bean to bar chocolates has been, a chocolate bar is like $15.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
who can afford that, or $10 or $15? So I think we kind of check off all the boxes. And it's, day after day, we're getting more and more listings. We're getting rotations, velocities are picking up. So we're really excited about back to school.
Yeah. It's a big time for you guys, probably.
Yeah, it's a 7-year overnight success story, right? Like,
They
Vega, I
all
think,
are.
was,
Aren't the best
Mhm.
ones? They're not
Mhm.
overnight. People
Yeah.
think they might be, but they're usually at
Yeah.
least that long.
Yeah, Love Good Fast the exception with the 2 years, but we're well on track for our 7-year overnight success story.
I love that. I love that. And Suzie, I will be sure to add links to all of this so everyone listening can find both Love Good Fats and Better Chocolate. I know we literally are down to the wire here. So there's one question I love to ask every founder that comes on here, Suzie, that I would love to hear your answer, because your hands are just in so many different things right now. What tools do you use to plan, big macro goals, your yearly goals, all the way down to just like what you have
Yeah.
to get done today? Are you a pen and
OGSM.
paper? Are you
Yeah.
a
Pen
app
and
person? What
paper,
are
OGSMs. Yeah. I mean,
what's
it's all the
OGSMs mean?
objective goal strategy measures.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's,
Yeah.
PepsiCo had the house, and P&G and Conagra had OGSM, but it's essentially Mike Fata, I think in his latest book's also a fan of OGSM. It's just
I got his
really,
book up here.
yeah,
There we go.
there we go.
Yeah.
So it's, and that's a whole other podcast, but the magic in goal setting is kind of it's not as much which tool or app you use. It's the thinking behind it. I've done it at like 20 companies now, at least, on average, every year. So it's more about the thinking that goes behind it and the
Mhm.
choice of words. Like, you really have to be crisp in your choices, because you can just write generalities, 8 strategies, and with the general worlds, oh, we will get awareness, we will launch in a bunch of stores, blah, blah, blah. But so every brand writes the same strategies and puts numbers, but doesn't work. Like, oh, why not? Right. Like, and so picking, and I've been like in my corporate world, I was at 5 multinationals, and I was a change agent. I was going in when things were broken. So Heinz was had been broken for 10 years, Weight Watchers. So I went in then. And it really is, it really starts with the the objective, and the goals flow out, and the strategies.
Love
And I
that.
saw,
Okay.
bad strategies, or not clear or not optimized strategies, versus, new CEO or new president, different strategies, boom, turn around. So the planning tool doesn't matter as much as to who are the executives leading the planning.
That's really important, and I think a
Mm.
big takeaway today, because I think a lot of people get stuck on the tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, more important on the process. I love that,
Yep.
Suzie. Well, I know you got to run. I will. Is the best way for people to follow along in your journey LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but LinkedIn's you can DM me and I answer all my DMs. Even though I get, 20
A
cold
lot.
calls a day, I try to find, the non-cold calls in there and make sure I reply to everybody who reaches out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Suzie. I will add all that
Perfect.
to the show notes. It was a pleasure meeting you, and let's stay in touch.
Okay. Thanks, Shane.
Awesome.
I'm going to
Bye,
jump
Suzie.
off, but you know where to find you.
Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you.
Perfect.